in the news world, they always say, if 2,567 aircraft take off on a given day, nobody takes notice. But if one crashes, then everybody's up in arms. Now, with the Ugu situation, they say, okay, Naidoo is doing a good job. New measures in place to take Ugu to a non-disclaimer audit. But there are still problems with water, sewerage, meters. People say that they're being overcharged, wrong accounts, etc.
Okay, Johan, on the issue, let's talk about the issue of meters. I think it's an issue. We acknowledge it's a problem. We have 42,000 meters, or we have 42,000 customers in the district. And we have found that it's also leading to what we call water losses. So what we have done is that we have now, as part of mitigating our water losses, and we received a grant from Water Affairs, together with that and some of our own money, we have now commissioned an audit of the entire district. Now, what will this audit do? This audit will audit every single customer that we have to check where is the meter, when last was the meter being read. And in auditing, they will now read that meter every month. So we'll correct all the figures. I must admit, there's been some very serious billing problems because the meters were not being read on a monthly basis. You are doing estimations. For estimations to be successful...
Sorry for the interruption. When was this? Was this before your time or until quite recently? Where they weren't being properly read, the meters?
No, it was, I mean, even in the last financial year, it was not being properly read. But it's something that started a few years ago and just continued unabated. And in the last financial year, we decided to deal with it. And this is the plans that we have put in place. So what will happen is that if you want to do estimations, you must read your meters at least once in 3 months. Because then once you put your estimation in, it does the adjustments. But if you don't read it once in 3 months, then it adjusts on its own figures. And that's where you have the problem. Because you have the billing that is going out to people with a certain reading that's been estimated. And the people look at the billing on it, it's totally different. Because your estimations are not correct, because you're not feeding in regular information. So we have now decided, the service provider is appointed, we will then audit all the meters. We'll also be auditing illegal connections, people who applied for a certain number of kiloliters and are using much more than that, the zoning of the properties, how many units, all that we will close in, and it all will come out in the audit, and then we'll deal with that. And I'm convinced that once we audit all these meters, we'll have proper readings, and henceforth the meter must be read every month until we can come out with a policy, or we can come out with a program where even if we read on once in 3 months, it is credible figures. It is a problem for us. We're acknowledging it, but I think we have put plans in place to fix it.
Because my own situation is our water consumption has doubled. Even sometimes more.
You will get the correct readings now, and then they will do all the adjustments.
How long do you think that will take?
No, we start in July. The readings will start, so it will be incremental. In fact, we've already put teams out there. They're already working, where in some instances we have been making the adjustments. But there we focused on those who had huge debt, and some of the debt was not paid because of these disputes. So we are sending our staff out there, reading the meters and trying to settle these disputes. But I do acknowledge that our billing system is not the best, and we have to deal with that, and I think we are dealing. We may even look at implementing a new billing system. We are looking in the market to see what is available and how we can deal with that. But I think on the issue of the billing, and especially the meter reading, I think if we implement what we have set out, we're going to be able
to. People who watch this now, listening to what you're saying, what should they do now? Should they just hold tight? What must they do?
No, they must continue to pay their accounts, and obviously if it is a ridiculous astronomical account, they need to come in and raise it to us. Then we can send somebody to then double check that meter and make the difference. Because if they don't pay, then it will show they didn't pay and they get the water cut off, which causes unnecessary problems. But obviously if you have been using your water and your water account has been 1,000 rand every month, or around that ball, and suddenly you got an account for 5,000, then this is a really serious problem. So don't sit back, come forward, bring that to our attention and we correct that for you.
When you say bring, do they bring it here where you are? Or
No, to the inquiries, yeah, they bring it to the inquiries and we send somebody to do it.
The other problem, sewage. There are many, not many, I'm exaggerating, but there are quite a few cases there have been over the past weeks or so where sewage have been spilling into the streets. And then people say they phone Ugu and it takes 2 or 3 days for a reaction. I mean, can that be true?
I don't know if it's true or not, but all I can say is that for those issues where it was brought to our attention, and many of the ratepayer organizations and officials have my contact details, and where they raise it with me, we respond immediately. Those sewer spills that we were having, some of them were occasioned by where we have people who steal these cables, and obviously there's no electricity to the pump malfunctions, and then the sewer starts spilling out from those pump stations. We're trying to deal with that because they steal the copper cables. And even in one instance, we had our pump that was stolen. We had to fly in a pump from Cape Town. So we need to deal with that and see how we can be able to overcome that. But the one that has been receiving a lot of publicity in the papers recently is the one in Marburg. Okay. Now, I think we need to put that in perspective, because somehow I think when the press reports anything to do with sewer is Ugu. And I think that whilst we acknowledge that sewer is our function, but I think you've got to have the facts of the matter, and then you'll be able to understand that. The issue in Marburg is that the Deepvale Park is a private development. Okay. And you know that when a developer puts up a private development, the internal reticulation is the responsibility of the developer. We just provide a connection. And what has happened in Marburg that was not properly done, I don't even know how it was passed. When that happened, we responded, and it was not correct to say we didn't respond, because we have facts and when we responded and so on and so forth. And we did what we should have done. We called in the Department of Water Affairs, the Environmental Affairs. We did an inspection. We sent a letter to Water Affairs, and the Department of Water Affairs sent a compliance notice to the owner. So I think the press would have done well if they rather focused on the developer who was the defaulting party than rather blaming the municipality, because it's not us who has caused the problem. And right now the problem is not resolved. We've checked, the Department of Water Affairs has served the notice on. So I think the one in Marburg, yes, that was an issue, but I think Ugu was unfairly criticized there. But nevertheless, as government, we accept that. In terms of the other issues that we have, Johan, I think in certain instances you have blockages. Now you need to ask yourself, why are you having these blockages? Because it's shocking what we pull out sometimes from this thing. People put foreign objects that should never be there. So the truth of the matter is that if people use the system and only put what's supposed to go in there, we won't have these problems. So I think the press should also look at some kind of education to the people, because I think it's their responsibility to also assist and educate the people. This is what you put in the system, and this is what you don't put into the system. And then where you have a system that malfunctions, we look at it. But I don't think that, if there was a problem, we take 2 or 3 days to respond. And in any event, most of the time when there's blockages within your property. And when there's a blockage within, it's your responsibility to deal with it. Ours is to deal with the reticulation. But as soon as you have the problem within your, you want to call the municipality. And then we also find that in terms of the connections, you have connected somewhere else, the neighbor is diverting it, and then we get involved in between those problems. So it's a lot of problems, but where we are responsible, we must respond. If we have not responded, then I'm quite open. People can bring it to our attention. We'll investigate it and look at it. And if our staff have been negligent, we'll deal with them. We'll deal with them.
Isn't a part of the problem still the communication channel that isn't always very effective?
Yeah.
People phone and then they get different answers.
Yeah, no. I think we also acknowledge that our customer care is not what it should be. We are dealing with it, but unfortunately it's taking invariably long to have it resolved. And I think therefore people also get frustrated, because when they call the call center, they are unable. But I think I said this to the ratepayers organization, Johan. The problem is that we don't have many lines, but I think we're going to fix that and get in a few more lines. And we're trying to re-look at our call center, control center, and how we relate to the public. That is a problem. But when you get callers who call now, they just don't give the details and say what's the problem. They want to engage in a 15-minute, half an hour conversation and vent. I understand sometimes you are frustrated, you're angry. But once you jam the line, then nobody else can get in. And that's a lot of the problems. But also internally we have some problems, yeah.